I'm Tony McMichael. I'm the Professor of Population Health at the Australian National University in Canberra, Australia. And I'm here to write a book, or at least to draft a book. The title is When Climates Change, Famines, Fevers and the Fates of Populations. And it's an attempt to tell a long historical story about human experience in response to changing climate over the ages. Well, my project is really inspired, in a sense, by some frustration that I've been registering over the last decade or so as somebody who, immodestly, has been a leader internationally in developing research on the topic of climate change and the risks currently and particularly in the future to human health. But the public discussion about climate change has got bogged down pretty much in the immediacies of the economic consequences, the impacts on industries and jobs, risks to physical infrastructure, concerns about iconic species, polar bears, Great Barrier Reef and so on, all very important, but we don't seem to have made the connections, connect the dots and realise that all of these sorts of changes ultimately, if not currently, present risks to the future of human health, food supplies, fresh water supplies, stability of infectious disease patterns, protection against extreme weather events, and social stability, you know, as a basis for well-being and reasonable mental health, as opposed to the consequences of displacement and disruption and conflict. So we don't seem to have got to the point of understanding the stakes we're really playing for with human-induced climate change. So it's increasingly seemed to me that it would be useful to look back and ask the big question about how humans have fared in the past in response to naturally occurring climate change. And there I'm a bit lucky because climate does vary naturally and has made a number of short-term and long-term fluctuations over the last 10,000 years. So there's an interesting record of that changing exposure to climate and increasingly, as we move from the long distant past towards the future, quite a good record of human health outcomes. So I'll be attempting to put those together because it's an interesting story anyway, it's fascinating, but hopefully it will alert us to the great dependence that our societies everywhere and across time have to climatic stability. Most of the story that I'll be telling will be, as the title of the book implies, about food crises and famines, hunger, deaths, and infectious diseases. Those are the things that are most evident in the long historical record. If we go back a long way, we do find very interesting evidence at times of dramatic climatic reversals, as occurred about 11,000 years ago as we were warming, coming out of the last ice age and approaching this Holocene period that's prevailed with a reasonably stable climate over the last 10,000 years. But there was a major hiccup around 11,000 years ago with dramatic cooling, and that really disrupted the settlements that were starting to flourish in the Nile Valley. Suddenly the river flows declined, the supply of foods, fish, animals that were hunted, vegetation declined, and there was a shortage of food and a shortage of fresh water supplies. There was conflict, and it's evident in the archaeological studies that that conflict broke out widely and the number of settlements declined from about 20 to 4. That's a pretty dramatic effect on human health through warfare and bashing one another to death. There was also evidence of nutrition deficiencies in the skeletal remains. Of course, the question is, well, what are the implications for the future? And I will want to devote a certain amount of the book, maybe up to 1/3 of it, in which I then say, well, this is what we've learnt from the past. How does that provide an analogue for likely future experience? And in some ways I'll be able to say, well, yes, we can learn directly that societies are generally, depending on circumstances and resources, are pretty sensitive to rather small changes in climatic conditions. And in fact, we're now having to face a future in which the extent of change and the rate of change in the world's climate is actually likely to be rather greater than anything that I'm going to be able to study in the last 10,000 years. But nevertheless, that long history will give us a clue, and readers will want to know what it does mean for the future and how it should help us to reframe our thinking so that we understand that human well-being, health, survival, the stability of societies, the avoidance of conflict, are all very dependent on being able to maintain a climate that is within our comfort zone. And we're now on the brink of moving out of that. So this is rather an urgent project, I think, and I'm hoping the book will just contribute a little to bringing us to our senses and helping us understand the stakes we're playing for and taking the sort of immediate action that increasingly is seen as necessary.